Hey everybody, it is the weekend and I wanted to make a quick video about some new rules for Shadow Dark or proposed rules, particularly for melee combat with horses, war horses, and mounted combat situations. And I had a talk with some friends I really respect. Don't want to tell you who that was yet. Um, but people who were better with the crunchiness and the math part and also understanding maybe how we apply the bonuses and modifiers so that it's standard and true to the core ethos of Shadow Dark. Because I'm kind of new to this and writing up some of these bonuses and things for certain combat situations, you know, I can get muddled very easily between okay, I played D&D for a long time, or I played Napoleonics for a long time in miniatures and with 6 millimeters. So massive combats and what bonuses do you get when you're charging uh, for initiative or weapon types, whatever it might be. And of course, those rules get a lot hairier in Napoleonics, a lot more options. So let me share the screen here and I'm going to show you what this is. I will tell you it will be helpful for you if you have a little bit of basis on what I've been up to and you understand where I'm coming from with this. So I started publishing a zine recently. It's called Erudite Zine. You can find it on Drive Through RPG or on my website for well under $10. And the first issue was called War Horse, and the theme was all war horse and travel related to not just war horses, also palfreys and roundseys and ponies and draft animals and mules and so forth, as well as wagons and that type of thing. And then there's all kinds of supporting tables and goodness there. I'll let you go explore Erudite Zine #1. I have another video on that. Maybe I should post the link in the show notes. But so taking this idea further, in that first zine, I also presented a new class called the Knight Lancer. Not a paladin, doesn't have fancy magical, dragon mounts or unicorns or any of that. Just a regular, good old real world style warhorse, right? That is trained specifically for combat and dealing with these type of situations we're going to present. So you probably need the Knight Lancer class as well as one of the war horses, because there's two in my zine. There's a Destrier, which is a heavy war horse, and there's a Courser, which is a medium level war horse. And they have a few combat differences as well. So you can download those for free right off of my website, by the way, which is EruditeDM.com. And hopefully you can spell erudite ERUDITE dm.com. So check those out and maybe download those things. That would be helpful for you. Let me go ahead and share this though, and show you what we're looking at. Okay, so here is the table, and I want to make that larger. So how the holy hell do I do that? See if I can remember. That's not going to do it. Some of these things I really should look at before I start and hit record. Let me see if I increase them. Okay, great. Took me a second there. Sorry about that. If I change it and increase it on my window view, then that'll help you tremendously. I'm going to go to 2 screens here. So pardon the learning curves. A couple of notes I have on this document are that, and this is a key one. These are proposed rules. Okay, Shadow Dark, the core rules, as well as Curse Scroll 2 called Red Sands, the one set in the desert that has a little bit about combat and about mounts and things. I've been through that with a fine tooth and comb, and none of what I'm proposing here really is at odds with any of that. I just find that they just didn't get there. Now, maybe Western Reaches will have a lot more about these things, and I will certainly read through those and defer to whatever the Arcane Library is proposing for us in those new rules. But until then, here's what I'm looking at. So one other note, these are for individual combats. This is not warfare. This is not a battle. This is not massed combat, okay? This is your party is leaving the castle, all right? One of you is on a war horse with lance in travel mode, and the rest of you are on ponies, let's say. And maybe even two characters are on foot, okay? So, you're a mile away from the castle, and suddenly you encounter bandits, let's say. And of the bandits, one or two of them might be mounted. So how do you handle that? How do you handle that where you have characters on foot, you have bad guys on foot, you have people who are mounted, and it's a mishmash? So same thing you've always done with Shadowdark, whether you're using figures or tokens or playing on a VTT, you're going to display who is where and you're going to determine initiative. So let's start there. All right. Just wanted to make sure you didn't think this was like some sort of mass combat rule. And by the way, if you are looking for mass combat rules and maybe you don't get to look at videos or X every day, there's a fantastic set of rules I discovered at North Texas RPG Con in Dallas a couple of weeks back. And I got to meet the writer and creator. Goes by Alchemic Raker, Raker, Alchemic Raker, and you can find him on X and on YouTube as a guest. There was a great interview with him on Second Watch last Friday night, which is Lord Mateus. And I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but anyway, check out his rule set if you want mass combat that works with individual heroes, your characters, side by side with a mass combat where you have 100 archers and 250 mounted men in chainmail, that kind of thing. Oh, and maybe there's a dragon there. That is what he does with his rule set, and it is called, make a note, get your pencil, get your pen, whatever you're going to make a note, or look it up right now and drive through. It's called Hell March, one word, Hell March. Very affordable, inexpensive rule set. Dang, I actually don't have the booklet here. No, I don't have the booklet here handy. I think it's downstairs. So look up Hell March, though, if that's what you're looking for, bigger combats. So back to war horses and mounted combat here, this simple table. Again, you guys are friends. I'm not here to shove this down your throat. I've had one friend come back and say, a few little parts of this might be too powerful. And I've had other feedback and other comments, but not enough yet. So I'm hoping to hear from you. And you go download this piece, which is on a blog piece on my website. You can get it there. But you download this table and try it out with your friends and let me know what you think. So, wow, boy, am I long-winded. Here's number one. The first thing is determining initiative. So in your initiative roll, if one of your characters is mounted and on horseback, you're going to receive a +1 on the initiative roll. And that is using your character's dexterity bonus, not the horse's dexterity bonus. Okay, this is a reaction. Are we in combat or are we charging? What are we doing? So when you determine initiative, add +1 to your initiative roll for mounted figures on your side. Number two would be facing a mounted charge if you're on foot. My feeling here is that you're going to have to make a morale check, and that's going to be a DC 14, which is substantial, and apply your wisdom to that check. Okay. If you pass, if you fail, what do we do? Well, if you fail, failing targets break and flee towards available cover. Makes sense. So there no combat takes place. The character on foot is going to hightail it and look for a tree, some rocks, somewhere to hide and get away from someone bearing down on them with heavy metal weapons. And if you're surprised, so if you're on foot and you're surprised by this charge, if suddenly horses are coming out of the woods at short distance, and I would say probably anything like under double near, which would be 60 feet. And 60 feet, by the way, is only 20 yards. So if if you've ever played football or were in marching band or ever been around a football field with the markers and everything, you know how far 20 yards is, and it's really not that far. So if you are charged, you're going to make this DC 14 wisdom check with disadvantage. So then let's say on the results you pass. If you pass, you're going to be able to fight on foot against that charging character on horseback. However, you're going to be -2 on your attacks. And if you fail that check, and you still have to fight while you're fleeing away, and they catch you and run you down, really bad situation, you may still get an attack, but you're going to be at disadvantage. Okay. Number 3 is a mounted charge attack. So in this case, we're attacking with advantage versus foot. All right. This is now we're past initiative, and we're charging and bearing down. Um, on them on foot. You're going to have advantage on the attack, +2 attack versus mounted targets who are stationary or standing. So if you're charging and the other guy on horseback doesn't decide to charge you back, you're going to get +2 on that attack. All right. And a charging character for our instances here, as I just said, has to move um, double near as a minimum. So 60 feet, in other words, and that's a ballpark. That's what I love about Shadowdark. We don't have to get there and get out a measuring tape or count grids or anything. Okay, next item, attacking with lance in melee, and you're not charging. So let's say your knight has his lance, and for some reason he hangs on to it and does not draw a mace, even a sword or a battle axe, a more suitable weapon, and he's swinging that lance around. He's going to fight in the melee with that lance now that he's stopped with disadvantage. Okay. And your damage is going to go downwards from 2d6 to 1d4. So not very effective. There really isn't much reason to do this, but wanted to cover that contingency in case it came up in your game. So what does that mean for the effects? Well, it means you're going to have to carry that thing two-handed if you're on foot, and one-handed on your mount. It's just too unwieldy unless you're charging. So typically after the charge, the knight's going to discard his lance, toss it on the ground for another day, and draw another melee weapon. Number 5 is warhorse melee versus mounted. So that's going to be a +1 attack for the warhorse, specifically a warhorse. So not a rouncey, not a general purpose horse, but a specific warfare battle trained warhorse, either the destrier or the courser in my system, in my zine. You're going to get +1 on your attack. No bonus for other types though. The rounceys, the palfreys, the ponies, they can fight, and they can attempt to fight in combat. Usually there's a morale check ahead of time to test that. And this is because number 5 is because the warhorses are trained for battle, and they do give a distinct advantage to a knight who's trained. I mean, the warhorse and the knight are one combined arms unit when you think about it, and it's a very special thing. That's what got my interest flowing, this whole idea for a Shadowdark bolt-on, if you will, for these kind of campaigns or one-shots. Number 7, let's see, did I skip one? Yes, I did. Number 6, sorry, is mounted versus foot melee. So you're on your horse and you're fighting in melee now. Nobody's charging. You're twirling around on your horse, or you're standing there on your horse and you're swinging away at somebody on foot. The mounted attacker will have advantage on attack rolls. And this could be for anyone, not just a knight. So it could be the thief or some other characters on horseback and is fighting someone on foot. And the bonuses from number 3 above, which was the mounted charge attack, only apply in the charging round. So my vision for a charge is you're going to approach from a minimum of double near range. You're going to strike, and then more than likely you're going to pass through that target. All right. And then come back around on your next action and engage in melee at some level. So keep that in mind when you're envisioning how this charge action might look with an attacker on horseback. Let's see, where did that leave me? Number 7, individual melee on foot. This came up from one of my friends in my group. We were testing and playing from zine number 1 called Warhorse. We were playing the one shot that comes with that zine, and it's included in it, called Horse Lord of Tanishorn. And there are some of these mounted combats. And he wanted to set his spear against a target and fight. And overall, I think that's a great idea. It's a great defensive mechanism, but not in an individual combat where some people are on horse, some are on foot, what have you. And we're not talking about trained, formed combat, battle combat, like a Scottish Shiltron, something like that. Okay, for one figure to post a spear against their foot or a rock or anything else and hold that up like that's going to defend you against a charging war horse or another horse, that's just crazy. At least that's my opinion, and I would not allow that probably in the game. Even if you got two or three guys together, they're not trained for that kind of fighting. Okay, more than likely. Um, and in small numbers like that, it's just not going to work. I think one thing with all of this focus on war horses and mounted combat I've been working on recently is it gets lost in the real world. Have any of you ever stood next to a horse, a fully grown horse? Have you ever ridden a horse? I haven't since I was a kid, and I was, riding with somebody. Um, but when you get around just a regular horse, it is imposing, the size and scale and weight of that animal next to you when you're standing there. And that's just in a friendly situation, at the pony rides or or the carnival or a farm or something with a friend or a ranch. I'm here in Texas, and people have horses sometimes when you get out of Houston, at least. And it is very imposing. If you've ever been in New Orleans or New York or other cities where they use horses with the police departments, that's why they use these big animals, because they are easy to control folks on the ground on foot. Now, imagine one of those animals charging at full speed coming at you. Forget the guy sitting on top with a pointy object who's going to try to skewer you with it. The horse is scary and imposing enough. I think that gets lost in a game like this when we're sitting at the table. So that's why, long story short, again, another long story, I apologize. I didn't want to make too much of this defense because I think it's kind of lame, really, in this usage. In a formed unit, absolutely. Pikes and pole arms, they did it. They used it. They used it effectively, and so forth. Um, but not in this individual combat situation. So it's just not possible versus a mounted charge in individual combat, only mass combat. So what are we going to do in that case? Well, the first thing I think you need to do if you're on foot and you're going to try to defend yourself with a pole arm in a non-charging situation. So let's say the horse and the rider are circling around or standing next to you, and you're using a pole arm. I think you need to make a DC 13 wisdom check first to set your defense with that pole arm. If your character is set and brave enough and steady enough to fight that way, great, you're all set. And then you're actually going to get +2 on your melee attacks. So whether you have a halberd or a glaive or a spear, some heavy spear, some other type of pole arm, and that's because it's a reach weapon. It's going to create some separation between the rider who's swinging with their melee weapon now and you with the lengthier weapon on foot. And I think that becomes an advantage as long as you clear the morale check first. Number 8 comes right out of my zine. Uh, Only the heavy warhorse, the so-called destrier, has a trample attack where it can charge down with its rider and try to run over a figure. And again, individual combat here. So how does that work? Well, the attack plus strength bonus to hit for the horse. We're talking about the strength bonus of the horse. And it's going to roll its attack. And if it strikes, it's going to inflict 2d6 damage. That's really strong damage, same as a lance in Shadowdark. Um, the defender, for the defender's part, has to make a dex check of a DC 13, or you're going to be knocked prone. I might even go so far after the damage, if you're still alive, if I were the DM, maybe to check if you're conscious or stunned for a while, because that would be like getting hit by an Amazon driver or the UPS guy coming down your street. They zoom through my neighborhood all the time. That's our equivalent reference for being trampled by a heavy war horse. you should be lucky to survive that scenario if you're a first, second, third level character with few hit points. Um, so the note on the side says for number 8, separate from the rider's attack. So think of it as you're going to have 2 attacks. Your rider's going to come and do their thing on if you're riding a heavy war horse, and then you're going to say, okay, I'm also going to try a trample attack with my war horse. Okay, so that's why the war horse and the rider have to be trained for these kind of combat situations. That's why I wanted more crunchy detail. I don't want to say crunchy because it's not really about the math, but it's about the details of what's permissible within Shadowdark, where there are no rules talking about feudal style combat. That is the gap that I wanted to fill with the first zine, and I'm trying to fulfill, because I think a lot of us play in those type of worlds, and I do believe Shadowdark can be so much more than just a dungeon crawl game. I love it for dungeon crawls, but there's so much more to do with it. Number 9, call your shot. This is where I'm defending against someone on horse and I want to strike the horse. Or I say, I'm going to focus. I only want to hit the rider. Okay. I have to rethink that. Maybe that's not good. Maybe we should assume you're trying to hit the rider. But if you call the shot and say, I want to hit the horse instead, let's assume that's the case. Let me know what you think in the comments about number 9. But let's say you decide you're going to try to strike only the horse. You're going to be at a -2 attack. Okay. And it only applies when targeting the mount or the rider intentionally in a deadly combat. You don't target horse or mount in a friendly joust. And I have rules for that as well that you can also download for free on EruditeDM.com. And they come with zine number 1. Which is also called Warhorse. I know that's a little confusing. So anyway, number 10, we're about to wrap this up. So 1 or 2 more. Falling from your horse. So there's a number of instances that could trigger this. The rider receives crit damage. Okay, somebody rolls a 20 against you and you're whacked. The mount spooks, and there are rules for that on the mount sheet of how you determine if your mount spooks or if your horse is killed. Okay, then your rider on the falling mount, or the affected mount, I should say, has to make a dex check, DC 11, or you're going to fall and take 1d4 damage. 1d4 may be too light. I believe I saw in Curse Scroll 2, falling from a mount was a 1d6. I don't know if that was because it was a camel, a taller animal, or what, but I don't know, 1d6 might seem a little heavy to me. It's just a personal preference and a taste. Again, all these things, pick them apart, man. Let's talk about it. Tell me what you think in the comments, because I want to take this table, and if we wind up keeping it and using it, then I think I'm going to dice it up and make a series of revisions after I get some better ideas from some of you. And then I'll post it somewhere for free on the website, and people can just share it and use it. And the last thing, of course, is really just more of a reminder, because I found I did this in our game when I was playing with the Monday night group. I kept forgetting to add the shield bonus, which we all do in normal melee, right? You get your +2 if you're using a shield, which would apply to fighters and knight lancers, those trained to use a shield. But suddenly we get into horse combat. We're all worried about what the horse is doing, and I've forgotten a couple of instances, even in a joust situation, I forgot to add +2 to the armor class of the bad guy, which was a bit of a disadvantage for the bad guy. Sorry about that, bad guy. I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off now. So that's the table. That's what I'm thinking about doing. And let me add 1 or 2 notes that you couldn't see at the bottom of that table. And this certainly will infuriate some of you or annoy somebody. So I don't want to miss out on that fun. So I have 3 notes. Note number 1 says, combats fighting on foot are assumed to be small groups of monsters and characters not in a military trained formation. Okay, I beat that drum already. They are especially vulnerable to figures charging on horseback. We covered that. The second note is archery from horseback. My feeling is in no instance ever should you be allowed to fire a longbow from horseback. Just not possible. Not when the bow is 6 feet tall and is as tall as a man in height. That's not going to be possible with the strength and the maneuvering and the body position and the torque and twist and all that you need to fire a longbow. If you don't believe me, go look at many, many videos online on YouTube from the armory types who do these tests and things. So if we're good there, now on the other side, of course, a short bow, composite bow, you certainly can fire from horseback, as we know from the Mongols and Tatars and other horse peoples who are very effective with the short bow from horseback. So certainly feel free to keep that in your game with your monsters, whether it's goblins or something else on horseback. Let's see. And the last note I have is this table included deadly lance combats between mounted and adversaries, but not competitive, non-deadly field jousts. So just didn't want any confusion. If you're using this table for a chivalric, honorable field joust, which means a non-deadly field joust of 3 tilts, there's a combat system for that presented in my zine, and you can download it, as I said, for free on the website. But that is not this table. This is all about death and blood and killing, and that's what we're concerned with here. So that's what I have so far. I didn't really want to make this a long video. I know, like I said, I apologize. I'm probably talking through this on the fly without much prep, and I've been looking at this table now for quite a while and playing with these ideas. And every other day I go in and tweak something else, but it is not a finished product. I do intend to give it away for free when it's finished. And if it helps everybody, good for us. We'll play Shadowdark. We'll have more horses, more travel scenarios, more travel and combat scenarios, more ambushes at the ford, trying to cross the bridge. You know, let your imagination run wild. So I hope you're playing some Shadowdark, and I hope you're having fun with it. Please, before I forget, like the video here. And if you like this kind of content on a regular basis and you want to talk about Shadowdark some more, or see some of the interviews I'm doing with other games, like Hell March is coming. I'm working on one with Horde Wars right now. I talked to Chubby Funster the other day. There's a video on here about The Last Candle, one of his medieval French world settings that you could use in your game. If you like that kind of content, you want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel, please, and tell your other Shadowdark friends, the other people you play with, hey, go check out EruditeDM. He's not a total schmuck, only a partial schmuck, and do like the channel. So I hope you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.